I think that covers everything that you'll likely see on the test about Africa. Just keep in mind one thing I haven't mentioned. They do have priests. Islam doesn't. All right, I'm going to spend the next 18 or so minutes reviewing for Wednesday's test. I start off with reviewing chapter 6. Hope this should be obvious. Are there Indian mounds in Georgia?
Yeah.
There are several Indian mounds in Georgia. And I believe probably the nearest one being the Etowah Mounds. The Indian mounds were used likely for what?
Burial.
Burial. Even though the chieftains tended to live on top, at least that's what they told us when I went to the Etowah Mounds last month. That a lot of the top families would live on the top of the mound. Who was the European who conquered the Aztecs?
Cortez.
Cortez. And the king of the Cortez, his name is?
Montezuma.
Montezuma. What happened to the persons who lost a ball game? They were sacrificed. Human sacrifice appears to have been practiced by all the Indians living in Central America. Yeah, there were the Incas living in South America, and the Incas had a whole lot of what material that the Europeans wanted? Gold. The man who was instrumental in defeating the Incas was a man named Pizarro. And if any of you ever read the Superman books, there was a creature in the Superman named Pizarro. Pizarro is spelled with a P, with a B. Pizarro is spelled with a P. Very similar spelling. What's that? P-I-Z-A-R-R-O.
Who did he conquer?
He conquered the Incas. Now, in the South America, there's some long lines that even your authors say that some people have speculated were made as a landing place for space aliens. I mean,
The Nazca lines.
The Nazca lines, yeah. They were very, very straight, and nobody knows how they could have been made so straight. Oh yes. One of the biggest Mayan cities, the biggest Maya city, is a city called Capan. Capan. The Mayan empire, such as it was located on the Yucatan Peninsula. Yucatan. Let's see. Now, leaving the American Indians for a while and going on to Islam. Now, folk, this is so basic. And yet I'm surprised how many college students don't seem to know it. Where did Islam start?
Africa.
Oh my.
In Arabia?
Arabia. Islam started in Arabia. Okay, I simply am amazed. So, Islam, I mean, hey, the other class didn't do any better. They look like, what is he talking about? Islam started in Arabia. And who was the founder? Hopefully. Muhammad. Yeah, Muhammad. The holy book of Islam is called the Quran. Islam begins its calendar with what event? The Hijrah, whatever you have to pronounce it. The flight of Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. He converted the Medinas and then went back and converted the Meccans by flame and sword. Fire and sword. Let's see. Islam spread. All right, something I want to clarify. Islam never got more than half of Spain. They didn't get it all. Again, they got the southern half, and then the northern half had the two kingdoms of Castile over here and Aragon here. When the Queen of Castile married the King of Aragon, they were able to drive the Islamic people out. The Queen's name was Isabella. The King's name was Ferdinand, and the year was 1492. It might sound like an American history lesson. I mean, even elementary school students learned the names Ferdinand and Isabella in 1492. But actually, before Ferdinand and Isabella could help Columbus, they had to first take care of the Moors. They called them Moors. Now, Islam was stopped from going into France by a certain leader and a certain battle. What was the leader's name and what was the battle?
Charles Martel.
Charles Martel and
Battle
the
of
Battle of
Tours.
Tours. Yeah, Battle of Tours. Stopped them. They went into battle and went to sleep that night and woke up the next morning expecting a fight, and they found the Moors had spent the entire night running. Yes.
What was the battle called?
The Battle of Tours, T-O-U-R-S. Think of taking a ride, a trip. Battle of Tours. Famous battle, one of the more famous battles. Yes.
Islam begins its calendar of what?
What's that?
Islam begins its calendar of what?
Oh, with a H-I-J-I-R-A. Hijra. All right, now, Islamic. All right, now not everybody who follows Islam follows this, folks, but is it true or false? Islam forbids dice rolling.
True.
True. Islam forbids card playing.
True.
I reminded some of the students this morning that card playing can become highly addictive, and the person still hears it. Yes, that's right. I don't know if he found out himself. You can sit up at a college campus and play cards all night, and then have to get up and go to work the next morning having had no sleep. It can get a hold up and grab. So anyway, that's one of the reasons people use for not playing out. I understand the logic, but nevertheless, I mean, hasten to state, Islamic people have made excellent foot racers, put out excellent soccer teams. These games are not considered games of chance. Excellent basketball teams, again, these are not necessarily games of chance, but cards, dice, they don't believe in. Now, again, a lot of them do. They don't believe in drinking either, drinking alcohol. A lot of them do. How many wives can an Islamic man have?
4.
4. How many husbands can an Islamic woman have?
1.
1. Under Sharia law, if a woman commits adultery, what's supposed to happen to her?
Stoned.
She's stoned. Hey, most of it seem to be heard that one. Now, again, 50 years ago, the students probably would not have known that, but today, this part of the world is making national world news. Under Sharia law, if a person decides to leave Islam and convert to Christianity, what happens?
Stoned.
He's supposed to be stoned to death. What is the big divide that has split the Sunni and the Shiite?
Disagreement over succession.
Who's to what?
The disagreement over Muhammad's succession.
Yeah, who's to succeed Muhammad? Number one issue, who is to succeed Muhammad? The chief god of Islam is said to be
Allah.
Allah. Allah, I've heard that name pronounced Allah. 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 Do the Islamic people allow Muhammad's picture to be painted?
No.
It's absolutely forbidden. So we don't know what he looked like. For that matter, we don't really know what Jesus looked like either. All right. What has been Islam's worst enemy as far as keeping them from conquering the world?
Fighting each other.
They start fighting among themselves. This is proven to be, basically it's the old saying, we have met the enemy and it is us. Oliver Hazard Perry wrote in his official report to Washington, after he'd won a battle of Lake Erie, he wrote in his official report, we have met the enemy and they are ours. And that has become a famous saying, but it's been paraphrased a little bit, a corollary, we have met the enemy and it is me. I have met the enemy and it is me. A lot of time. That's very true. A place of worship for Muslims is called a mosque. Yes.
Well, what's the biggest mines?
The biggest problem they have?
No, the biggest mines.
The biggest.
Mines?
Oh, Copan. Yeah, I was there one time back in 1976. So we talk about some of these ancient writings having been deciphered. Has the Mayan script been deciphered?
Yes.
Yes. And a lot of us don't like what we wind up reading, but just like the Spanish deciphered it way back, and they didn't like it either. The Ethiopians claimed that their dynasty was descended from who and who? King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Right. Oh yeah, these trails you see on page 225, I had this gentleman, how come they didn't travel in straight lines? The best answer I can give is they had to follow either the contours of the valleys or follow the oasis where they were. But a lot of their trails were not taking a straight line like an airplane would take. And again, folk navigating on the Sahara Desert is like navigating the sea. You have to navigate by sun and stars. That is before the invention of the compass or before the invention of a GPS, global position. You had to navigate by sun and stars. Because you couldn't navigate by mounds because the mounds would shift. You'd see a big mound here this year, the shifting sands. Now, when I was a kid, there was a really popular song about the desert shifting, whispering sands that would keep moving around. But you know, a big mound would be here this year, come back next year, the mound is gone. So you couldn't navigate by landmark. You had to navigate by sun and stars. What animal did the people use? Camel. To get across the desert. And why the camel? I mean, of course, it can carry heavy load, but what else?
It retains massive amounts of water.
Retains its water very well. Retains its water. Oh yes, something I must say. What are the two big gifts that Muslims gave to the world without which we could hardly do without?
Algebra.
And the zero. Algebra and the zero. Thanks. And their numbers is called Arabic numerals, but again, it was based on the zero being the center of the numeral. Without Arabic numerals, without the zero, we could never teach elementary school children how to do arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It can't be done. And then algebra is the basic, the low point, the entry point to all higher mathematics. When you get past arithmetic and go on, the first course you take is algebra. Is that still true?
Yes.
Yeah, the first course you take is algebra, and it introduces you to higher mathematics. You cannot take calculus or geometry unless you've had algebra first. Again, invented by the Arabs, but they stopped their scientific advancements because it came into conflict with theology. It did for Europeans too. I mean, hey, but Europeans went on with the discoveries anyway. But Christianity and science does appear, and I say appear, to conflict. And I think that's a matter of interpretation. Science is subject to interpretation. In a lot of cases, religion is too. The Islamic people didn't see it that way, so they stopped their scientific advancement. And when they did, they declined. All right, who is the ruler who came from Mongolia and almost destroyed the Muslim world? Genghis Khan. Now, he came with the Mongolians, and after him came another group of Mongolians called the Turks. And they eventually destroyed the Byzantine Empire. But for many generations, the Byzantine Empire was able to hold them off because they had a certain weapon called
Greek fire.
Greek fire. Weapon called Greek fire. All right. The Crusades. Who eventually won the Crusades? Muslims. But when the Crusaders first arrived, the Muslims were not prepared for armored horsemen who could gallop on them. And here they thought they were excellent horsemen, but they just couldn't handle these European armored horsemen. And they were, of course, they were busy fighting among themselves. So the first Crusade was a success. But then a great Muslim leader wound up driving the Crusaders out. They came back, but at least he drove them out of the tent during his lifetime. Who's this leader I'm thinking about? Saladin. And Saladin made news in the 20th century again because Saddam Hussein believed he was descended from Saladin. Saladin wound up driving them out, and reconquered Jerusalem. All right.
The Crusades, you said almost destroyed the Muslims.
The Crusades caught the Muslim world unprepared. And initially, the First Crusade was a military success for Europe. But after that, none of the others were. There wound up being about 200 crusades, of which there were 9 major crusades. But other than Crusade number 1, no other crusade really had any success. The Muslim world became better prepared for them. Then came the Black Death, and all the crusading stopped on both sides. Yes?
Was it Saladin?
Saladin was the one who reconquered Jerusalem for the Muslims. Yeah, the First Crusade had taken Jerusalem and the area around the holy sites. Saladin reconquered it. All right, and yes?
You had talked about where they have like a guide of diseases and like which ones are contagious. Did you say a certain name for that, or you just
What's that?
for Islam?
It's called Islam, it's called Mohammedans. No, what's the question again?
The question was, you talked about where Islam they made a guide for diseases.
Oh, they had better medicine at one time than Europeans did. Far better medicine. They were ahead of Europe. In fact, they were ahead of Europe in astronomy, in medicine, in science and technology. But folk, it's like the race between a rabbit and a turtle. The rabbit started out winning big. Then the rabbit fell asleep. And the turtle kept on going. Basically, Europe was the turtle. All right. All right, folk, I'll see you all on Wednesday. We'll start the test around 3 o'clock. Okay.